Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay in the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
The Black and Gold Banneret Podcast is brought to you by the Unger Real Estate Group, powered by eXp Realty, proudly serving Orange, Seminole, and Lake counties. Call 407-790-9957 or visit WeSellOrlando.net.
What's up, Night fans? Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon joining you here along with Brian Murphy. Eric is out of town this week, so it's a double dip of me and Murph this week. Brian, you just got back from the early start. UCF men's basketball getting the victory over USF, which we'll talk about here in a second. But, boy, you know, I know people complain a lot about the starting times because of television, but isn't a 6 o'clock p.m. start really nice?
Yeah, I mean it's nice for me to be home, and I'm one of the last ones out of there, and I'm home by 9:30. So for the fans to be home by 8:45, that's got to be great on a Wednesday night.
I don't know what people are complaining about. I mean, just come on in and you're out of there early.
Yeah, and the thing is, people are making their way from work, and I've heard that people got there late, and there was a lot of traffic, and that's what the complaint was. Like, you gave me more time to get off of work, but now, okay, well, you can't have it both ways, sort of thing.
Right. Just take the back way, take the 408, Challenger Parkway and all that. That's the easy way to get there. And people are trying to get there, going down University. It's crazy. That place is that road is freaking packed all the time. Anyway, all right, we're going to talk about that in a second. We're gonna we got a busy show. We're going to recap, obviously, UCF men's basketball. 2 straight big wins. One at Memphis earlier this week, and then the win tonight against USF. We're going to talk women's basketball. Coach Abe joins us to talk about their upcoming game. Huge game with USF on Sunday at noon, so we'll be talking about that. And the football schedule came out. Time's still to be determined, but we have the order of opponents and where they're playing them. And so Brian and I are going to break that down here for you in just a moment. Make sure that you hit us up at blackandgoldbanneret.com for all the latest, where Brian and I write our garbanzos off up there and whatever thoughts that we have. We got some good stuff up there recently, a lot having to do with football and basketball, so you're going to want to check that out. Baseball season's starting up, of course. By the way, we are doing 2 podcasts this week. There's this one, our regular podcast, and we're doing a full baseball preview. So if you haven't seen it in our feed, make sure you check it out. Got head coach Greg Lovelady in there, and then Brian and I break down baseball as they will start their season this weekend with 3 huge games at home in the construction zone currently known as John Giuliano Park. In addition, you can hit us up on Facebook, facebook.com/blackandgoldbanneret. And also, hit us up on Twitter at UCF_Banneret. I am at Jeff_Sharon. Brian is at Spokes_Murphy. And, of course, Eric is also at Eric Lopez Elo. He's got a lot of stuff coming up because softball season is underway as well. We're going to catch you up on that, too, at the end of the show. But first, let's talk a little hoops. UCF men's basketball gets the victory over USF tonight. We're recording this on Valentine's night. 72-57, UCF advances to 16-9 overall, 7-6 in the conference. USF is just having another nightmare season, 1-13 in the conference, 8-19 overall. And the story from this game, Brother Brian, was the shooting for UCF, which, we've talked about before how this team just struggles to score. That was certainly the case at the end of the Houston game, which was just such a critical game that at the last time that they were home. But tonight, man, A.J. Davis, 9 of 12 from the field, 26 points in 37 minutes. B.J. Taylor with 21 points on 8 of 15 from the field. And my God, UCF hit 79% of their free throws tonight. And that'll get it done on the home floor against a team like USF. You were there. What did it look like with your eyes down there on the floor? What was working and what was the key tonight?
Well, it's just amazing what AJ Davis is in right now. He's sort of, in the zone, and he won't say it himself. We tried to get him to sort of compliment himself, and he won't bite. He's very much a team guy. But in the last 2 games now, including the Memphis game, AJ is I think 18 for 22 from the field, which is insane. And he's shooting threes. I think he was 3 for 3 from downtown today. He got like 4 or 5 and 1s opportunities. He's going in the lane and drawing contact to get to the line for 3-point plays. He's scoring all over the floor. And really for this offense, it's Taylor and Davis. It's option AJ and option BJ. And they've been great the last 2 games, and they've carried this team offensively. Tonight, the third option was Dayon Griffin, who hit season high 4 threes for 12 points. So that was good to see them, get a third score. But really, this team is AJ and BJ's team right now, and they were challenged. BJ said that they were challenged by Johnny Dawkins. The day before the Memphis game, they had a team meeting in which he challenged the more experienced players for what is very much a young team. But the BJ Taylors, the AJ Davises, the Chad Browns, he challenged them to take more ownership of the team and be more like veteran leaders. And Chad was very good against Memphis. Didn't really pop tonight. But as far as BJ and AJ go, they have been focused in. It's been amazing to watch them sort of just dominate over these last 2 games.
Yeah, AJ and BJ combined tonight for 17 of 27 and 47 of UCF's 72 points to go with also 11 rebounds. BJ had 6 assists compared to just 1 turnover. AJ had 9 rebounds, 3 of them on the offensive glass. And to calculate those numbers from before, AJ in his last 2 games, including the victory over Memphis, AJ Davis is 18 of 22 for 46 points in these last 2 games. UCF, by the way, did get that victory on the 11th against Memphis, at Memphis, 68-64. Where AJ was, again, 9 of 10 for 20, BJ 7 of 18, but 22 points. And that was the night's first ever win at Memphis, at FedEx Forum, which, you finally get get off the schneid in terms of that. But as we look at these last 2 games, though, here, Brian, taking a look at what UCF has on the schedule remaining right now, they're 16-9, 7-6 in the league with 5 games to go. 3 of them at home. The next one is Saturday against SMU, and I'm going to pull up the schedule, the standings here from the American. But right now, what does this look like in the last 5 games for this team? What do they have to do in order to? I mean, we know they're going to get to the conference tournament, but what's the realistic position that they can find themselves in if all goes well with the tournament being in Orlando this year?
Well, I think what I think they should aim for is a top 4 seed. And they're not going to pass Cincinnati or Wichita State, but then like from 3 through 10, really, it's a real big logjam in the AAC. And UCF's right in there. I believe after this win, they're only like a game out or maybe a half game out. I've got to pull up the conference standings.
Yeah, I got it right here. They're a half game back of Tulsa. Tulsa's at 7-5. Cincinnati's 12-0. And Houston and Wichita are actually tied for second at 9-3. So then you have that Tulsa at 7-5, UCF and Temple at 7-6.
So how about this for the next few games? You've got SMU here on Saturday morning. It's 11 a.m. tip. By the way, SMU playing right now against Memphis at home. They're down by 7 to Memphis in Dallas. That's the second half. So that game might finish before our podcast. We actually before we wrap up here.
Right.
But then after SMU, UCF has Tulsa in Oklahoma, and then back home. Or no, excuse me, Tulsa on the road, and then Temple on the road, back to back. Those are huge road games next week.
Yeah, because you're right there with those two teams in the standings. Temple actually plays tomorrow, the 15th, at Wichita. So that we should keep an eye on too. Houston faces Cincinnati. That's actually a huge game in the conference right there tomorrow night as well. And then Tulsa is at UConn tomorrow evening. That game's on ESPNU. So that's what you have in the American coming up. Right now, I mean, we got the word earlier today, and you got the word that Chance McSpadden's going to be out for the year. He suffered an injury in the Memphis game. What's the latest on that? And what is the situation right now for what they're going to do to sort of fill his hole in the lineup?
Yeah. Well, Johnny was asked about it tonight, and he basically confirmed that, Chance is done for the year. It sounds like a broken finger, and it's just not enough time for that to heal. Even in a 4 to 6 week time frame, there's just not enough time left for that to heal. Chance's big contributions weren't really on the stat sheet. He was just a defensive stopper on the perimeter. He's a long guard who can play the 2 and the 3 really, but he can also guard point guards. He's a defense first player. So that's where the loss of him will really hurt. Against a team like USF, you really don't need Chance McSpadden because USF is just going to get in their own way and they're not that good. But I think down the stretch, you're going to see, again, more effort defensively out of A.J. Davis, who kind of guards. He's been guarding basically all positions this year. So that's probably what's going to happen. They're going to have probably more A.J. on ball handlers. But look, I mean, the guy's playing 37 minutes a night, so he's going to give – and A.J. knows that we're entering the final stage of his career. Here at UCF. He's got about 6 games left in the regular season, then the conference tournament, and then maybe something after that. But this is it for him, and I think he's cognizant of that. And so I think part of what AJ is doing sort of feeds into that as well. Like he understands, like this is it. He's got nothing. He's gonna give you everything he's got. And so I think they're gonna probably ask him to do a lot more. Maybe what would seem out of position, but for him, he'll be doing a lot more. I think ball handling, defending guys. But then, you'll see more time for like Dayon Griffin. Terrell Allen got 26 minutes tonight. We'll see if Miles Douglas, gets a few more minutes, but he really has been kind of in the doghouse for a while. But it's just another injury for this team. Jeff, it's been since before the season started. This has been the basically the headline of the team is another injury. And tonight, Dayon actually went down and was grabbing at his wrist in the first half and sort of like had to go get looked at in the locker room. It's like, oh my God. But he did return. Right? Yeah. But he did return and hit a couple of threes. So Dayon's fine. It's just, maybe this is the last one. But I would also add that even though BJ's on the court, BJ's not healthy. And he'll admit that to you. And he's a guy who doesn't say a whole lot, but he'll admit that he's not healthy. He's still not all the way back from the broken foot that he suffered in November. And then he turned his right ankle before the Cincinnati game here a few weeks ago and then re-aggravated it, I think, at Cincinnati, like last week. So he's banged up, but he's still out there giving 36, 37 minutes, and that's what this team's going to have to do. Right now, they're bonding together. And with all the injuries and all the strife and adversity, they're trying to find a way to win. Now, I don't know if the USF win is a huge gauge because they're not very good. But certainly, SMU, if SMU has Shake Milton back, and then the Temple and Tulsa road trip is going to be very telling.
It's interesting seeing this team play tonight, basically, what Michael Lombardi would say, like left-handed. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think this is what kind of makes UCF sort of a dangerous team if you start to see them hit a stride. Like, if BJ continues to progress and he starts to peak in time for the conference tournament. You talked about how AJ's kind of sensing his basketball mortality, if you will. And it's funny how, we see that, sometimes the seniors coaches talked, I'm sure we both have heard it. I know I've heard it from coaches in several sports that there's sort of that switch that goes off when all of a sudden you kind of look up at the schedule and you're like, man, this is almost over. I'm almost done. And that mortality kind of creeps in. This really felt like sort of a turning point for that combination, like you said, with AJ and BJ kind of putting the team on their back and saying, all right, this is our show. We're the ones who are going to try and bring it home here, with Taco out and Chance out and obviously going back to Aubrey Dawkins not being available this season. So what do you think about the fact that there's something about this team that says, okay, they've gone through so many iterations of what they do in the course of the year because of the injuries. How dangerous do you think they might be in a one and done situation?
Well, in basketball, you got to score. And I mean, that's not being like, lowest common denominator. Like, this team still has problems scoring. And so how hard can they be in a one and out? Well, if your shots fall, anybody's going to be difficult. Hello, 1985 Villanova against Georgetown.
Right.
But, this team there are still worries about this team offensively. Yes, they were 9 for 18 from three tonight. But on the season, they're 339th nationally in three-point percentage. They, hit, I think, 15 of 19 free throws. But nationally, they're 343rd in free throw percentage. Your numbers are what they say, they say they are, and they are that. So at this point, I'm still not ready to say that this team offensively is going to be good enough to run the gamut in a one and done, conference tournament. That's why that bye, getting in that 4 seed is so valuable, because winning 3 games in 3 days is easier than winning 4 games in 4 days. Or I should say, it's a lot harder to win 4 than 3 and 3. So they really need to get in that top 4, get a bye, and see what happens. But this team right now, even with the injuries, kind of understands all of their roles, and they understand. I think they're very also aware that these injuries and the adversity could have torn them apart. And I think part of that team meeting was to get them all together and to get them to refocus and to get them to buy in down the stretch here and say, look, even though we've got all these things that are going wrong for us, we're going to stay together. And so I think that was a really well-timed meeting. If they end up going to the tournament and running the gamut here at the Amway and going to the tournament, that meeting will probably turn into narrative number 1 about why this team is where it is. But that'll probably overstate it. It's just an easy narrative to say that meeting changed everything. No, but it did give them a bit more focus, and I think they understand their roles. BJ and AJ know they're the leaders. Chad's the energy guy inside. Dayon needs to hit threes. Cesar DeJesus is a driver who can pass out of the lane or go in for a layup. And I'll tell you what, Rokas Ovidas. So
he's not my Vitas. He's not your Vitas. He's old Vitas.
So Rokas, let's be kind, okay? Like Rokas early in the year, you're watching him play, and it's bad. Like, it didn't look like he belonged out there. It really doesn't. But you know what he knows how to do? He knows how to stand up straight and with his arms in the air. And it's really hard to shoot over that when he's in position. Tonight, he took 2 charges. I think that's something that Johnny is going to look at and smile. Rokas is out there doing a little bit of dirty work stuff, getting some rebounds, but really playing some solid defense once he can get his feet set. He's improved, and I think that's important because obviously without Taco Fall, the interior of that defense changes dramatically. So he has helped pick up the slack a little bit. And so I think guys are getting used to their roles, and even with all the injuries and all the changing formations, these guys know where they are. And I think they should be they should be content, not satisfied, but content with where they are right now, because they could be a lot worse than 7-6 in this conference.
You almost compared Ovidas to what was it, Yvonne in the movie Eddie? You remember that? You don't remember that? Oh God!
This You have gone off the rails here.
What
I'm
are you
a big
talking
movie
about?
buff.
Okay.
I'm a big movie buff. This is nuts.
Okay. So you know the movie Eddie. That's the one where Whoopi Goldberg takes over as the head coach of the Knicks. Which, it's the Knicks. I'm pretty sure it foreshadowed a lot of things in the 2 decades to come since then. But Dwayne Shinsis, who played in the NBA, is actually a graduate of the University of Florida, plays this Eastern European big man who, he can't shoot for anything, but he can. But she teaches him how to take a charge, and it's the one thing that he does that he actually figures out how to do. It's amazing. I got to give credit to Ruckus who's figuring it out, and he's had to figure it out on the fly, as a lot of these guys have, and it seems to be starting to work right now. So, well, hopefully it'll continue to do so as the Knights head down the stretch. Once again, their next game coming up, home against SMU, 11 a.m. at CFP
11 a.m. That's a double dip weekend.
ESPNU's got TV coverage of that one, but it will be, but like I said, home, and then one more home weekend in the first weekend of March with Wichita and Tulane coming to town before the conference tournament. All right. Let's switch gears over to women's basketball, and you want to talk about a team that's been unleashing some defense on people. The UCF women's basketball team right now, 17-8, 9-3. They in the league. They are coming off a big win on Saturday against Temple. Fresh off the loss to UConn, where Eric and I talked about it on last week's show. Yeah, they lost by 18, 55-37 to UConn, but that was UConn's lowest point total of the year. And so they come back, they get the road win in Philadelphia at Temple by 7. And Eric and I spoke about it, how this stretch run for them really starts to shape up. They held Temple to 5 points in the first quarter. Temple is a good basketball team. They excuse me, I was looking at UCF's record. Temple's not really a good basketball team. They're 2-9 in the league. Sorry. But Z Saunders with 18 points on 8 of 13 from the field. KK Wright was 5 of 12, 8 of 10 at the line for 18 points to go with 4 assists. L'Oreal Wilson with 9 points off the bench for UCF, and Masni Cabo once again with 6 rebounds, 7 points for UCF in the middle. So we're going to hear from Coach Abe in a little bit, but now we hit this big-time stretch with USF coming in on Sunday at noon. Then you're on the road for Memphis and Houston in that order, and then you're back home for ECU to finish out the season with 4 games to go. So this is a key stretch for UCF as they sit currently in third place in the conference. A half game back at the moment we're recording this, a half game back of USF, one full game back of USF. USF's 10-2 in the league. They're all alone in second place behind 12-0 UConn. UCF right now at 9-3 in the league, but you get that win. If you're able to get that win against USF has one more game to go against UConn. So unless something crazy happens, you win out. If you're UCF, you may very well be all alone in the 2 spot, to finish out the season. So we're going to break them down in just a little bit. But first, a little earlier today, we're recording this on Valentine's Day, I had the distinct pleasure of previewing the game with Coach Abe, Katie Abrahamson-Henderson, head coach of UCF women's basketball. And here is that interview right here.
And joining me now, the head coach of the UCF Knights women's basketball team with a record right now 17-8, 9-3 in the conference rather, and heading into this enormous game with USF on Sunday. Coach Abe, Katie Abrahamson-Henderson, joining us here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining us on the show here. I guess first thing I'll ask you got this, plenty of time off since the game up in Philadelphia against Temple. 8 days off heading into the USF game. How's the team health-wise as you head down to the final 4 games of the regular season?
Yeah, I mean, we talked to him today actually about that exactly, and we actually gave him 2 days off. So obviously we had the game on Saturday. We gave him Sunday, Monday off. We practiced a little yesterday, and then we're off again today. And I really wanted to know how their bodies feel. Obviously, mentally they're fine, but their bodies just needed a little break before this big swing coming in. They all feel really good. They get really anxious if they're not practicing. So, but I'm trying to force them to stay out of the gym as much as possible, just because of the last swing. I don't think they understand that 4 games in 9 days is going to be a lot, especially on a low number of bodies that we have to play.
I think the effort that this team has put together for you this year has just been amazing, especially on the defensive end. Right now, you're number 1 in the conference in scoring defense, at giving up just 53.8 a game. You're facing in your next game against USF the number 2 scoring offense in the conference, obviously behind UConn in USF. What has been the approach this year on the defensive end of the floor?
Well, that's always been our approach as a staff is, if our shots aren't falling, definitely we can get stopped. And we always have a goal defensively, what we want to hold every team to. Obviously, we didn't think we could really hold UConn to 55 points. We were hoping for maybe 65, 70, and we did a tremendous job with them. So that really gave us a lot of confidence in terms of going into all the next games. So, I mean, now I think we're to the point that we know that defense is going to win us games no matter how our shots are.
You suffered, we were so worried throughout the year because you suffered so many injuries on the interior. Tolu is out, and then you lose Fifi. But you've gotten some great help from Masani Kaba. You've gotten a couple other players to kind of fill those roles. How has your interior play worked out so far to this point, given all the injuries that you have, and who's stepped up for you this year?
Yeah, I mean, boy, when Tolu and Fifi both went out this year, not being able to play again, that was really scary, I think, for the team, especially for like Ali and Z in the guards, and so now we have Nyla Schuler playing the 4, and now Kayla Thigpen has to play the 4, which neither of them, honestly, are forwards. They're both guards. I mean, Nyla's probably a 2-3 guard, and Kayla Thigpen's a 2-3 guard, and so we've actually asked them to step up and play a lot more minutes. And obviously, Masani was going to have the opportunity to play because she's such a tremendous athlete, and what she does on the floor is pretty amazing. So, but she's been forced to play the 5, and we signed her to be like a stretch 4. So, she's really stepping up too. So I'm very proud of those 3. I mean, they have to play a lot of minutes. They have to stay out of foul trouble. You see, in our last game when they got in foul trouble against Temple, it really hurts us. I mean, we go in the game really small, and it's just tough on everybody else because if we don't have them in the game, especially Nyla, it really hurts us. So defensively especially, and then Moss, obviously, if she fouls out offensively, we have pretty much no presence in the low post. So, we've really asked them to step up, and I think not just them, but KK and Z have had to play a lot of minutes. I mean, they're playing 38, 40 minutes a game, pressing the whole game, running the offense, playing at a high pace. So, obviously I'm very proud of everybody that has to play a lot of minutes, and they're stepping up knowing, they don't have a lot of options not to be out there. So it kind of is a positive because they know they have to play, so they're really focused about playing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Z next because, she's a redshirt senior. You're only going to have her here for 1 year, and she's your leading scorer this year, and she's just done all the little things too. How big of a role has she played, in just kind of keeping the team together despite, some of the adversity that you guys have seen with the injuries that you suffered?
Well, I think she's played a huge role starting last year. I mean, nobody noticed her last year because she wasn't on the floor, but what she did for us last year being the new staff and coming in was she was a coach on the floor, coach in the locker room. In terms of understanding what our system was. I mean, we're with them, 3 hours a day, 2 hours a day, obviously, but we're not with them as much as Z is. Z's in the locker room with them, when frustrations come, when things are hard and they don't understand things, and she tries to be the coach out there that understands why we are trying to get them in shape, why we're pushing them so hard, why we're pressing, why we're doing whatever we're doing offensively. And she really helped us last year, helped us turn the team around last year. And so obviously now going in this year, they have a lot of respect for her now that they see, her words last year, why we were doing things, then now she puts them to use on the floor. So they really respect her now because she kind of put her money where her mouth is a little bit in terms of, when I get out there, I'm going to help you and I'm going to do the same thing and I'm going to work as hard as you. And, she's one of our hardest workers. And when one of your best players is one of your hardest workers, boy, your team will follow really quickly.
So you head into this game with USF. We're expecting a really good atmosphere for the game, war on I-4 and all that. Last year you get them, you beat them in Tampa when they were ranked, a huge win for the program, and I think it was UCF's first win over USF in Tampa since 1982 or something around there, going way back in the day. Now you have a chance to even the season series this year after the game in Tampa this year. Is there, from your perspective, is this another just another game, or is there a little bit something extra because it's USF and it's this war on I-4 rivalry now?
Well, obviously it's all of the above, but I think for our team, we try to prepare our team every game the same way so they don't get too nervous about a certain game. And so we've been really successful in doing that, including with UConn. So obviously I know there's little things that they talk about that I try not to bring up because I know that the way I present the game is going to be, really big mentally for them. And so to me, it's the next biggest game. And obviously to us, it's our next biggest opportunity out there in terms of where we stand in the conference standing right now and big picture where we want to be. So, and obviously they know they're ranked, and obviously they know they just beat Ohio State. So that really helps our conference. I'm beating Ohio State in terms of our conference RPI, and we have a lot of respect for them. But I think the biggest thing is the last time we played them, we did not play them the way we wanted to play them. Obviously they're a really good team, and he does a really good job with them. But for our team, I don't think we showed up very well at all for that game, and we learned from that experience. We saw what we did, and so now we can go in this game with that mindset, more so it being what we didn't do the last game. It's going to prepare us for this game on Sunday.
Well, as a fan, I tell you, I can't wait for this game to come on Sunday because, it seems like it's everything that we've, been waiting for, and a chance to, like you said, you're a half game out in the standings right now with them at 9-2. You're at 9-3. Getting through this one and having it at home, it should be a great atmosphere, and it's and that's, you can't ask for anything more than that from this game. Katie Abrahamson Henderson, Coach Abe, UCF head coach. The game tips off on Sunday at noon. You can catch the game on CBS Sports Network but don't do that, everybody. Please come to the game at CFE Arena. It should be a good one on Sunday. Coach Abe, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck on Sunday. We'll see you.
All right. Thank you. Go Knights.
All right. Thanks again to Coach Abe for her time as she's busy planning for this game and the home stretch. And thanks again to Megan Herbuff, also with UCF Athletics, for helping set this up. So there we are. It seems like the table is set right now for UCF women's basketball, Brian. And this is going to be a tough one because we know about the history between UCF and USF on the women's basketball side. Last year, like I mentioned in the interview with Coach Abe, UCF's first win over USF in Tampa since the 80s. They come back, and she said, like she said, they didn't play the way that they felt like they were capable of playing against USF in the earlier matchup this year, which was, USF obviously ranked 25th right now, 62-45 win for the Bulls back on January 14th. But, games at home, UCF, their only loss in the stretch since that game was to UConn. So this team seems to be heating up right now at the right time. I don't know, from what you're seeing, what do you think of the chances that this team could possibly win out and get that number 2 slot?
Well, this is the game of the weekend. This is the game. I think I'm going to write about this too. there's a lot going on this weekend. It's a big UCF athletics weekend.
Oh, yeah.
With baseball opening up, with the basketball game on Saturday, men's basketball on Saturday, with softball there as well. But this women's basketball game against USF is the most important UCF athletics event this weekend. And it deserves everybody's attention because it's pretty gigantic. In that, yes, they are two teams, not just the rivalry, but they are teams separated by a game. In the standings, really in the terrestrial realm of the AAC, because UConn is just, obviously in another stratosphere. So we don't even look at them. This is really just to decide who is the second best team in this division. And this USF team just beat down a top 15 rated Ohio State team by about 20 points over the weekend. And now coming in to face the Knights, this game is. I really can't wait for this. I'm really looking forward to this. I think it'll be a lot of fun, and it's the most important event of the week.
Yeah, it's certainly shaping up like that. And I've told Eric this before. We're headlong into the what I call the spring sports equinox, where the winter sports are crossing over with the spring sports, and basketball's crossing over with baseball and softball and tennis and golf and everything that's coming to a head. And this is the first weekend that we're actually going to have all those sports in one shot here. So, by the way, one fun little note that I wanted to drop in here about UCF women's basketball, the defense. I mentioned this to Coach Abe, and she's really proud of the defense that her team has been playing. 53.8 points a game is number one in the American, and better than UConn, because UConn is giving up 54 per game. We talked about how UConn mustered only 55 against UCF last week. In UConn's next game at home, they came home to face Wichita State, and they threw up 124 points on Wichita in the final game, in the game right after the UCF game. So they more or less took out their frustrations on the Shockers. And I think I saw somewhere, I'll have to double check this, but I think I saw it was the second most points that the UConn women have ever scored in a game.
Wow.
They shot 71% in that game.
And it's not even just that. They beat, on Monday, they beat the number 4 ranked team in the nation by double digits, by 11. Yeah. That was the 4th ranked team in the nation. They beat UCF by 18. They went to South Carolina and beat South Carolina by 25. They beat UCF again by 18, and South Carolina is number 8 in the nation.
Right.
We know how good UConn is, but the fact that UCF did so well, and really UCF does so well defensively because they really slow down the pace. It's not a fun brand of basketball to watch. So that's how they do it. They basically just hold on to the ball for 30 seconds, kind of like what Virginia does with its defense. They run the clock deep. So, but that forces you into less possessions, and then they'll try to fight you for rebounds and stuff like that. But I can't wait for this USF game. I know it's, people don't pay much attention to women's basketball, but I'm telling you, and I'm hyped as anybody for baseball. This women's basketball game is more important than any baseball game this weekend. It's more important than the basketball game on Saturday with the men facing SMU. It's more important than softball. Yeah,
I'm hoping that we get a good crowd out for that game too, because I think this team really deserves it. What they did last year, getting to the WNIT in Coach Abe's first year, and now what they're doing this year, I think has just been the turnaround has been remarkable, and you've seen that sort of long-term change in the culture, and I think that's been something. And I wanted to correct myself. 124 points for UConn against Wichita was too shy of the program record, which was set against Providence in 1998, and the 81-point margin of victory against Wichita State, second only in UConn history to a 97-point defeat of Quinnipiac back in 1998 as well. UConn shot 47 of 66 in the game following where they scored only 55 points against UCF. So we'll see if the Knights can crank up the D once again against a very hot shooting USF team as well. So and that game will be once again noon Sunday. Television is CBS Sports Network, but if you can make it down to the game, it should be a good atmosphere. Hopefully just as good of a war on I-4 atmosphere as we saw tonight with the men, if not more so, because this game has a lot riding on it for UCF women's hoops as they aim for win number 18 on the year and their 10th conference win on the year as well. All right, stick around. We're going to take a short break. When we return, Brian and I will turn our attention to football. The schedule is out. We're going to break that down for you. And we'll also take a look at a couple of the other goings-on this week. Softball getting underway. We'll break that down as well in just a moment. Stick around. The Black and Gold Banneret Podcast is back after this.
The Black and Gold Banneret Podcast is brought to you by the Unger Real Estate Group, powered by eXp Realty. Sam Unger and his team proudly serve Orange, Seminole, and Lake counties, specializing in buying, selling, and new construction. Sam is a proud UCF graduate, class of 2006, and he's such a dedicated Knight fan that right now, if you work with him as your realtor, he will donate a portion of his commission to the UCF Football Excellence Fund in your name. So if you're ready to buy a new home or sell your current home, upgrade or downsize, Sam and his team have you covered so you can find the right home at the right price in the right location. So give him a call right now at 407-790-9957. Again, that's 407-790-9957. Or visit on the web at WeSellOrlando.net. Again, that's WeSellOrlando.net. You can also reach them on Facebook at facebook.com/WeSellOrlando. Get in touch with the Unger Real Estate Group today and make finding your dream home a reality.
Hello, Night Nation. I'm Andrew Fegley.
And I'm Trey Strelko. Where are we? This isn't our usual spot.
It looks like we've landed in the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of those guys.
You know, Nightline has UCF sports covered.
Week in and week out, we bring you interviews with newsmakers and in-depth analysis of UCF sports.
Subscribe to our weekly podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Be sure to subscribe to Nightline on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter at UCF_Nightline.
Trace, can we go back to the 1148 studios now and start working on our next all-new Nightline?
How do we get out of here? Go Knights!
Charge on.
Now back to you guys in the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
All right, welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Brian Murphy with you here. Eric Lopez is away. He's actually down in Tampa doing some work for the American Digital Network. But he is with us in spirit as always, and we've got a busy show for you as well here. Today, don't forget to follow us at UCF_Banneret. I'm at Jeff_Sharon, and Brian is at Spokes_Murphy on Twitter. Also hit us up on Facebook, facebook.com/blackandgoldbanneret, and at blackandgoldbanneret.com, where you can find a breakdown of UCF's football schedule for the 2018 season. The Knights released the schedule on Tuesday, and I just want to go over this with you real quick, Brian, because we don't have any times set, although we can probably just about figure them out in some cases. But we have a couple more. In general, there's some unusual things with the schedule this year. But with UCF coming off of the great season, undefeated season that they had, I was interested to see how this whole thing would kind of shake out. And it starts with, once again, a Thursday night game against UConn, August 30th. UCF is starting for the first time ever with a road conference game, which, boo, if you ask me. I mean, starting on the road after the season you had. But then it goes like this. Saturday, September 8th against South Carolina State at home. That's the home opener. Then they go out of conference for 3 straight weeks. At North Carolina on September 15th. Home for FAU. First meeting between those two teams since 2003 on Friday, September the 21st. So a Friday night game at Spectrum. And then Saturday home for Pitt in the second meeting ever between those two teams. So 2 ACC teams on the schedule. We knew that going in, but at least they're not back-to-back. Then the conference schedule starts with a home conference opener against SMU Saturday, October 6th. to Memphis a week later on the 13th, and then to Greenville for East Carolina a week after that on October 20th. The bye week is the week of October 27th. And then in November, Thursday night game at home on ESPN against Temple. That's guaranteed television, but we don't know what time it is just yet. We don't know any of the times of these games. But Saturday, the following week, November 10th, home for Navy, home for Cincinnati on the 17th of November. Black Friday, once again, a war on I-4 against USF. It's a tradition unlike any other. And then the AAC Championship game scheduled for Saturday, December the 1st. So when we took a look at the schedule, Brian, when I looked at it, I was like, okay, I get it. Four games that are not on Saturdays. But that's what television does for you. And if that gets UCF on TV a little bit more, I'm fine with that. 7 games at home, 5 away. What did you think of the slate when it came out?
I think this is very favorable. And not that that's going to mean like they're going to go undefeated again because the schedule is so great. Like, no, that
Mark
comes
it down, everybody.
Like,
Brian Murphy just guaranteed an second undefeated
season. There you go. Yep. Stirring the pot.
There we go.
No, I mean, that's coaching and execution and, yes, luck. That's a lot of different things. But the schedule sets up so well for this team. I don't mind the starting on the road, especially starting in August in Connecticut. I'd if you have to go to Connecticut, I'd rather go there in August than to go there in November.
Oh, yeah. You're not kidding on that one.
So that's fine. People will gripe because of the national championship, season and say like they need to challenge themselves more out of conference. Well, this schedule was made, a few years ago. So North Carolina looked a lot better then than they kind of do now. But that's not UCF's fault. The FAU game is going to be fun. I mean, it's going to be so much fun with Lane Kiffin.
Yes, the Lane train's coming to town.
But even more for me and people of my era, the 2007 era, Kevin Smith, who's on that FAU staff.
That's right.
24K coming back to Orlando as well. I'm looking forward to that. But if you look how the schedule sets up, so you've got the road game to start. You may say, I don't like that, but it really plays out well because after that, you've got one more road game and then 2 sets in the schedule, 2 sets of 3-game homestands, which this team has never had that. They have had a 3-game homestand before. I think they had a 3-game homestand a couple years ago. They had I think they had a 4-game homestand a while back, but you have 2 different 3-game homestands in the schedule sandwiched around the 2-game road trip in the middle between Memphis and East Carolina. Now, one of those teams should be a lot better than the other. That Memphis game in the middle of October could be a dynamite game. But, I mean, also, so you've got all these home games bunched up together, which I do think plays into a benefit. It does cut down on travel a little bit. But speaking of travel, this team does not leave the state of Florida in November. They have 3 home games and the season finale at Tampa against USF. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to have cold weather. We saw what happened in Dallas against SMU when we know the Fiesta Bowl year, but the odds are they will not have a cold weather game this season. Also, the bye late in the year, it's a little odd because you see a lot of teams take byes in weeks 2 and 3, but it's perfect for this team because the way it sets up, they come off the road at East Carolina. And then they're off from October 20th to November 1st, the Thursday game against Temple. It's a week and a half off. And then after that, they basically get another week and a half off because the next game's on the 10th.
Yeah.
And that's Navy. They get an extra 3 or 4 days to prepare for Navy, which is the team that you want to prepare for the most because they're the most difficult offense to game plan for. So they get more time to prepare for Navy. They get 3 home games back-to-back-to-back twice. They don't travel out of the state of Florida in November. They have no cold weather games that you would imagine they would have. This is a really favorable schedule, just the way it falls out. Now, this is obviously not predicting any hurricanes, which we've known can change some things.
Right, including last year's bye week, which was at about the same time, right? It was, I think, scheduled for October 28th, and then that's when they had to put the Austin Peay game, right?
But I mean, I don't know how a UCF fan can't look at the schedule and go, I like our chances there. That's a really favorable layout.
Yeah, I think that folks are just kind of a little disappointed on the weeknight games, but I don't mind the weeknight games. The first one that you have is FAU. First of all, that's a Friday night. I mean, it's technically not a weeknight. It's just an early game, and that game to me is the most interesting one on the schedule because you have FAU, who's the Conference USA champions from last year. 11-3 in Lane Kiffin's first year. The Lane train and all that. Funny story, I was actually on the field for the last and so far only time that UCF has played FAU, which was in 2003. That was, I think it was the second or third year of FAU football, and they came to the Citrus Bowl. UCF was coming off that 2002 season where in 2003, it was looking like, things were really going to come together for this team. And that FAU team with Howard Schnellenberger was the head coach there. Remember, he's the guy who basically started the FAU program, famous coach from back in Miami and coached a couple other places as well. And they took UCF to the wall in that game, 33-29. And I remember on FAU's last possession, their quarterback, a guy named Jared Allen, had an open receiver in the end zone down the sideline, and he overshot him. Otherwise, FAU would have pulled off the upset in that game. That was back in 2003. So, that was when I was a junior at UCF. So, I just think that that's really interesting. Anytime you can play an in-state opponent, my attention is piqued. You mentioned the two ACC opponents. UNC last year was 3-9. It'll be the first ever meeting between UCF and North Carolina. Pittsburgh not all that better last year, 5-7. They were fourth in the ACC Coastal. UNC was last. UCF has played Pitt only once, and they lost back in 2006. But yeah, you're right. I mean, those double 3-game homestands, especially the fact that they're going to play that game at East Carolina. We don't know what we're going to get from East Carolina this year because they're coming off a 3-9 year where they were fourth in the division. But right after that, there's the bye. You mentioned how the schedule shakes out beautifully with that Thursday game against Temple, and then you have the extra 2 days to prepare for Navy and another home game. Cincinnati the week after that at home, and you're looking, and then USF at Tampa on Black Friday to end the regular season. It's like literally the last month of the season could not have worked out better for UCF. And this year, I made this point on Twitter, because UCF had those 2 weeks off because of Irma, the 2 games that got wiped out, and they put the Austin Peay game on the slate in the open date. That defense was totally gassed, and especially in the last 2 weeks on Black Friday against USF and then the Memphis game. And it showed because they gave up a gazillion points in both games. And, this year, Mother Nature permitting, they won't, having that bye week right before Halloween is just the perfect spot, especially when you consider that they have those last 4 games in the state of Florida. In fact, the last 4 games basically along the I-4 corridor, if you want to get that specific, and they don't leave the state after the 20th of October. I mean, it's if you're Josh Heupel, your first year, you got to be looking at the schedule saying, all right, at least we don't have to worry about any quirky stuff with that.
Well, not yet. But have you ever seen a team or a schedule with a pair of 3-game homestands? I've never seen that.
I've never seen it at UCF, but then again, we haven't had that many years where we've had 7 home games.
Well, it's never happened at UCF, but
I'm sure it's probably happened before with somebody, like if Michigan had 7 home games before, but I don't know. I'll have to take a look.
It's just a weird stagger. It really is, but it's great. I mean, it's great for UCF who, look, you should have a home field advantage coming off of the season you just had. People should be wanting to see this team.
Yep.
but I'm not gonna complain. I'm you know my stance on attendance. I'm done. I was done in 2007 on attendance. I never will complain about it.
It's a cliche at this point, but my hope is that, that those two non-conference games, the FAU game and the Pitt game, those should get people charged up, for the season.
FAU games get people charged up.
I hope so, man, because it's going to be, it's such an interesting matchup, right? I mean, I hope that gets a decent television spot too. On a Friday night, you would think it would, right?
People were upset that it wasn't Saturday because people were looking at that game as a possible college game day game. That seems far-fetched.
I don't know about that.
But people, but whatever. I mean, you could instead of having college game day, you could have a Friday night all to yourself.
Right, and the other thing is, you get that one extra day off before you play Pitt at home. Mm-hmm. I don't know what you're going to get from Pitt, this year, but if you're going to play an opponent from the ACC or another, fellow Power 6 league team, the more time off you get to prepare, the better. And same thing with getting ready for North Carolina. I'm not saying that South Carolina State's a week off. Lord knows it's not, but you are playing an FCS opponent the week before you go play North Carolina up in North Carolina. So.
Well, just to be safe, they do have 2 extra days to prepare for South Carolina State because that game against UConn is on a Thursday.
Fair point. And maybe they could take the bus back from Hartford. Hopefully not. But yeah, so I'm a little bummed that UCF doesn't get a night to itself to sort of celebrate potentially on television. The undefeated season from last year, starting the season on the road is kind of a bummer, but overall, I think the schedule worked out. What was one of the other notes that I wanted to bring up on the schedule? I wrote a couple of them down here in the article, which you can find on blackandgoldbanneret.com, where I go over the opponents, including their records from last year and the series and last meeting with UCF. Boy, this thing is slow for me today. All right. UCF's opponents this year combined 2017 record, 73-75. Not overly great.
Yeah.
But, like you said, Pitt and North Carolina kind of factor into that. South Carolina State, who actually is fairly good traditionally, did not have a very good year last year. So that sort of contributed to it.
I can deride, East Carolina and North Carolina, but there was to go on the other side of the argument, there was I believe a 6-7 team that then went undefeated the next year. So, I mean,
yeah, we might have heard of that team.
Yeah. You never know.
What was the other thing? Family weekend is going to be the Pitt game. Homecoming is going to be the Navy game.
That's by the way, those are good placements too, because Pitt is a solid opponent. It's not like South Carolina State or even one of the lesser AAC teams. And then Navy for homecoming is, I really am looking forward to that. That's a really fun, challenging home game. So to have that for homecoming is fun.
Yeah. And by the way, the crossover opponents in the conference schedule from the West are the same this year that they were last year. So SMU, Navy, and Memphis. So interesting how it works out like that. So, but anyway, you can get more on the schedule at blackandgoldbanneret.com. Make sure you check it out. If you want to send us, drop a little comment on us, or send it over to our Facebook, let us know at least what your preliminary predictions might look like in terms of a record. Let us know. Have you thought about that, Brian? Do you have possibly a record prediction in store just based on first glance?
No. I will not play this game because people.
You're not playing ball, are you?
Because I know that if I say 10-2, someone's gonna be mad at me.
The pitchforks are gonna come
people will be upset. And I'm like, you know what? Forget it. Just wait.
Yeah. Yeah, you say 10-2, and then on Twitter, look at this guy. He's one of our guys. He's disrespecting us. I'm like,
disrespect, because we should expect to go undefeated. Although
you're supposed to be on our side.
By the way, I really do like as a public service announcement. Like, people need to like understand, like, no team other than maybe than Alabama should expect to go undefeated. It doesn't happen. There's a reason why there was only one.
Alabama shouldn't expect to go undefeated. They haven't gone undefeated yet to win the national championship.
At the most, it's only Alabama. At the most, that's why it's hard to do. You shouldn't expect it. If this team goes 10-2 or even 9-3, it's a successful season. Yeah. There will be backlash from another podcast and people on that podcast who disagree with me, whom I've talked to. But look, I mean, you can't expect it. It's one of those things where everything lined up so well. Look at how healthy this team was this year. They literally suffered like 3 major injuries, and the rest of the guys stayed upright. Mackenzie Milton got hit all over the yard and didn't break. Not saying it's going to happen this year. Please, do I have a piece of wood somewhere? I do. I have a wood armoire. There we are. So, just as sports fans, I beg of you, as sports fans, I know this is difficult for some people to do because you're so fervent, but please have some perspective about, like, if they do go 10-2, don't be like, well, this is obviously a failure. It's a step back. Like, please. But again, I'm getting myself too worked up in February for an argument that we're going to have in December.
I'll say this: if UCF football in its first year under a new head coach in a new system, with the guys that we lost last year on defense, comes up, 10-2, 9-3,
9-3.
I mean, I'm doing backflips, man. I think that is just as good as going from 6-7 to undefeated the following year. That's an incredible. That would be an incredible achievement. So
I agree.
And a testament to the new staff, the recruiting, and the installation of the new systems. That's just that would be one hell of an achievement. Speaking of achievements, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I said my final word on that. So no, to answer your question, I will not give you a record. I will only say that this team will absolutely not go undefeated 2 years in a row. All
right. We'll hold you to that. Brian Murphy says UCF takes a step back this year. Let's speaking of achievements, let's dive over to softball real quick. They actually started their season this year at the Friends of Jacqueline Invitational. This was played up in Longwood. It is a charity tournament that UCF started off in a really good slate of teams that they started out with. 5 games in the tournament. The Knights have started the season 3-2. They got victories over Butler, Providence, and Illinois in 8 innings, 3-2 in what was the big win of the week. They lost games to Louisville, and they lost to North Carolina in 8 innings. But, that game against Illinois went to extra innings. Walk-off hit by Cassidy Brewer gave UCF the victory as the Knights came back from down 2-0. They tied the game with a pair of runs in the 7th, in the last, basically in their last chance to do so, and then Cassidy won it with an RBI single in the 8th to give UCF the biggest win of the 5 games that they had. And I thought that was huge for Aaliyah White. She gets the victory in that game, and huge for the Knights to actually, it's always key, in the beginning when they start in terms of confidence to try and get these wins against these, non-conference and certainly power conference teams. To do so against a team like Illinois, solid victory, and to come back in the way that they did from down 2-0 to get the win over a Big Ten opponent, certainly big for the Knights. They're in Disney this week, Friday, for a pair of games against Northern Iowa and LIU Brooklyn. It's down at Lake Buena Vista. And then Saturday is the home opening day. They're at the UCF Softball Complex for another pair of games against Texas Tech and Florida A&M. They also have a game on Monday at home, 3 p.m. against Hofstra. So wow, UCF softball diving in already with they're through this weekend. They will be 10 games into their season already, and obviously, if you want the latest on UCF softball, make sure you follow Eric Lopez at Eric Lopez Elo on Twitter. And if you're looking to get yourself caught up, last week's episode we had Coach Gillespie on to sort of preview the season in advance of their of the opening tournament in Longwood. So UCF softball, Brian Murphy, you got to come out to a game, man. It's been too long. And
yeah, I think it has been about 11 years. I believe is the last time I went to a UCF softball game.
11 years, was that? They built the new ballpark by then, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think it was the new park. Yeah, it just opened. I think it was around 07, 08.
Yeah,
that I was out there.
So we got that firing up, and a little note on baseball, because baseball is starting up their season this weekend as well, with 3 games against 3 different opponents in a Friday, Saturday, Sunday format. Starting with number 15, Virginia, at home, and of course home for Rice on Saturday at 5 p.m., home for Samford on Sunday at 2. The Friday game against Virginia, by the way, starts at 6:30 p.m. You can catch all the action there at UCFnights.tv. We're going to save the baseball talk for our double dip episode this week here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast, so check the feed. We got an all baseball preview, me and Brian going over the season, going over the schedule, going over the newcomers, the returnees, and we got head coach Greg Lovelady talking with us as well. I actually talked with him in his office while there was construction going on, and it was it is a work in progress over there at the new John Giuliano Park, and it looks like it's going to be ready sooner than you think. It's not going to be, the whole thing is not going to be ready for opening night against Virginia, but it will be ready to have. They will be ready to have fans actually in the park. It's just that the new construction won't quite be ready yet, but it will be ready sooner than you think. So we'll have Greg on there to talk about that with you. So I'm excited for baseball to get started because, like I said, the schedule really works. Virginia's good, Rice is good, Stetson's coming in. You got Wagner coming in there pretty good. Florida, really good slate this year.
I'm very excited. I'm now, Jeff, to sort of tell you how excited I am. I'm a big movie person. Now, I did not see Eddie, so that's obviously something I need to catch up on.
All right, you're gonna have to Netflix that one tonight.
I am a huge movie buff, and in the words of the immortal Bob Costas, off of the piece de la resistance that was the movie Basketball.
Oh, God.
You think you're excited? Feel these nipples. I'm so excited, Jeff. This is so great.
Oh, this might be the first time I've had to think about censoring the pipe. No, I'm just kidding.
No, of course not. This isn't a Carlin routine yet.
Gosh.
But no, for me, this is my baby. Like, not just UCF baseball, but baseball in general. Like, I saw photos of the Yankees, breaking camp or in camp today, and I got a little verklempt. And it's a lock cinch that I will cry on opening day of Major League Baseball season. That's just sort of a tradition like no other.
You are like a baseball guy. Brian Murphy.
Sort of like the Masters. Yeah, it just has me. So yeah, I'm kind of intrigued by UCF baseball, Jeff. Just saying.
Well, they've got a big task ahead of them, and we'll talk about that in the show. But like we said, it's something that we all been looking forward to, and we'll be able to break down some things in that additional show. So make sure you take a look at it. Coming up. Real quick, before we finish up here, Brian Murphy, as we look at UCF women's tennis, they are off to a hot start right now. They are 6-1. Brian Kaneko, the head coach, has got to be happy with how they've come out guns blazing this past weekend. They were out in Dallas, out in Texas this past weekend. They beat SMU in Dallas 6-1. Then they go down to Waco and beat number 16 Baylor 5-2. So they are blazing through the Lone Star State right now. They've got 2 weeks off before they go back to Texas to play TCU in Fort Worth, and then Texas A&M in College Station. That's on the 23rd and 25th. And then they're finally back home March the 3rd to play Michigan. So that's something to keep an eye on right there for UCF women's tennis. Over on the men's side, they are off also until March the 3rd. They've got basically a whole month off after their most recent victory against UNF, which was a week ago tonight. We're recording this on Wednesday, February 7th. Wednesday, February 14th. Back on February 7th, they defeated UNF and to get to 3-2. So they've got some time now before their next match against Michigan when they go on a real tear of a schedule at home. So stay tuned on that. All right, let's wrap it up here. Brian Murphy, we've got a bunch of stuff going on this weekend. Where will folks find you?
I'm at spokes_Murphy on Twitter. I will be writing a lot of baseball stuff over the next couple of days. I will definitely be writing a season preview. I might be writing 2 of them, one for offense and one for pitching. I haven't decided how to split them up, but I probably will split them up because the pitching itself deserves its own article. And then I will have a feature on Bryce Tucker sometime during the weekend. So I hope by Saturday or Sunday that Bryce Tucker is still playing and hasn't torn his elbow out.
Don't be saying
really
stuff
nice.
around us, that man. I mean, keep him out of CFE Arena. Keep him away from the basketball.
Just really. So I'll have stuff, and then I do want to write about women's basketball because again, people should go see them. But yeah, I will be writing and out to baseball, and I can't wait for this weekend just because there's so much going on. But there's really nothing like a double dip, and when you go from basketball at 11 to baseball at 2, and they're right next to each other. It's beautiful, Jeff. It's beautiful.
Here's what's going on this weekend. We got Friday night. We got the baseball opener against Virginia, 6:30 p.m. Saturday. This is what I'm talking about with the spring sports equinox. It's happening, man. Men's basketball at 11, followed by baseball at where is it? Oh, baseball's at 5. Or excuse me, softball is at 3. Mm-hmm. Baseball is at 5. Another softball game at 5:30. All right, that's Saturday. Sunday, you have women's basketball at noon, followed by baseball at 2. I, by the way, will be at the women's basketball game for against USF. I'll actually be doing PA for that game, so that'll be fun. I'm hoping to bring a bunch of friends with me. For that game because that team could really use the kind of they deserve to have an amazing atmosphere for that game. So noon Sunday, of all the events taking place, like you said, Brian, that's the biggest one of the week. So
it's huge.
So we'll be keeping a close eye on that. So be on the lookout. Follow us at UCF_Banneret on Twitter. Follow me at Jeff_Sharon, Brian at Spokes_Murphy. Follow Eric Lopez at Eric Lopez Elo. He'll be taking care of softball for us, not just this weekend, but throughout the season. Hit us up on Facebook. Send us some questions. Facebook.com/Black Gold Banneret. And, of course, read everything that you've got, including the football breakdown, all the baseball stuff that Brian's going to be coming up with. And also, Brian, this weekend I put up a look back at the 2013 UCF recruiting class. We kind of did this I did this a couple years ago, and it kind of worked out, and I did it this year. I wanted to bring it back. Just kind of looking back at the recruiting class of 5 years ago. How did those kids pan out? Who was in that class? Really interesting look at it, and I know I'll be looking forward big time to your basketball stuff coming up and the baseball previews as well, because it's going to be great stuff as usual on blackandgoldbanneret.com. Don't forget, if you don't already subscribe to us, make sure you do. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and TuneIn. Tell your friends, give us a rating, let us know how we're doing right here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. So, for Brian Murphy, I'm Jeff Sharon. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget, our baseball preview episode is also up right now. Check it out. For Brian, I'm Jeff. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.